All right, so what we're going to do first is talk about how do you make a larger site model. So typically in the tutorial that I've shown you up to this point, you probably started by going to the scale down here and maybe doing something like 1 to 2000, right? And so you were only able to do models at the scale of whatever viewport that you saw here. That was really just a safety measure so that you didn't create a model too large too soon and possibly overblow the, the capabilities of your machine. In honesty, you can build a model as big as you want, however big you need it to be. But the key point is just making sure that the data itself isn't too high resolution. So this Montgomery LiDAR ground 00 thing that you all have, if I go into here, go to the properties, go to source, go to raster information right here, you see basically the cell size, X and Y, is 3.28, which is basically 1 meter. So this raster down here has a resolution of 1 meter by 1 meter. That's the highest resolution that we have for Montgomery. So resampling, I might have shown this already, but basically all you need to do is go to Geoprocessing, search for resample, and then go into here, and just let that thing load on the side. And we're going to create a sample raster. So bring in the ground 00, give it a name. So I'll call this one, let's save it into some folder on your desktop here. I'll call this one LiDAR ground 12 or something, 14, 15, 16. Let's do 12. Yeah, 12. So I'm going to do a 12 foot by 12 foot raster. Okay. Arbitrary number. You can do anything you want. So X is going to be 12, Y is going to be 12, right? And just hit run. Down there. And they'll resample the thing. So that's what basically happens when you finish that process. Let me just zoom in and you see basically the pixel sizes here, the little squares. Compare that with the previous one right here. A little hard to see, but you can see this is the previous cell size, which was 1 meter, and now the pixel size is much bigger now. But you'll notice that it doesn't reduce the overall integrity of the data itself too much. Like you still maintain a pretty decent overall quality of data. So that's good. So that's basically resampling. So now what we can do is we can create a model of a larger extents in this area here. So what I'm going to do for this particular demonstration is I'm going to create an area. If you guys were interested in the historic trail here, some of you were interested in the riverfront, some of you were interested in the highway itself. So I'll do like a kind of a general area around this extent here. So one thing you can do in order to quickly create a area to work with is to create your own custom bounding box. So what I do is in the catalog on the side, click on a folder that you want to create a piece of data into. Right click on that folder, choose new, shapefile down here. So that's how you create new data. So create a new shapefile. Call it bbox, whatever. This might be my 5th bbox by now, bbox 4, bf5. And then the coordinate system, make sure you set that to be the current map, which if you were using a map already, it should be set to Alabama East feet. So then hit run. Also make sure it's set to a polygon as the type. So hit run. And then at finish, so now you see there's a bbox 4 on the left. Before I do anything else, I'm just going to click on the symbology, turn that into a black outline. And then that way I can see through it when I edit it. So let's do this. Click on bbox 4, go to the edit thing at the top, click on this create button right there. Click on bbox 4 and the thing on the side. And now you can just basically draw your own custom project outline. So This doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can just literally be something like that. Okay? Then just save that as your file. Just hit save. Okay? Then what you do is, with that set in place, you can start creating your Infraworks model. Oh, before I do that though, one other thing I wanted to show was georeferencing again. So there is a way to do georeferencing that should be way easier than the method that I shared previously. So what I did in preparation for this little thing today was I created a couple of sample aerials. And these sample aerials I produced using pretty much the exact same method that I showed in the first workshop, which was you zoom into an area using this high-res aerial base, you put it into a layout page, you export that out at like 300 dpi. So this is like a 5-foot by 5-foot plot at 300 dpi. It's super high-res. If I zoom in here, you can see like it's pretty sharp and pretty high-res. All you're basically trying to create is a really high-resolution image. So I did one here. This is the historic trail with a little bit of the highway, and I just did another one here. So I'm doing it 2 times just to show how this works. This is the site here that is that whitewater park thing that is under construction right now. So I just wanted to do that as a to prep for another example down the road. So you've exported out your high-res aerials, and you need to georeference these back into GIS. So what you do in here is you go to your catalog, find wherever you save that. So in this case, I save them as aerial 3 and aerial 4 right here. So I might need to refresh this just to see if it pops up. Yep, aerial 3, aerial 4. So let's do aerial 3 first. So just drag that in. Whenever this thing comes up, just say yes. And it's going to have to do a little bit of thinking to basically build that shape, that raster into GIS. So you've added it. Aerial 3, aerial.png. It has no coordinate system. They don't know where it is. They don't know. So if you set it up correctly, probably what you've done is ideally you would have set up a bookmark, right, that roughly represents roughly where it is. So what you do is you click on the aerial, you go to Imagery, Georeference, right? First thing you always do is just hit this flip to display button right there. And what that should do is you can see it pulls in that aerial right on top, roughly where it is, Now, sometimes, the last time I did this tutorial, I got lucky. And I think I mentioned this a few times, like I got lucky. It lined up perfectly. But in this case, I did not get lucky. You can see that the aerial does not line up 100% perfectly in certain areas. Like here you can see the road, and everything does not line up just right. Like right here, it's pretty obvious. So there's a button here called Auto Georeference. So the way you do this is make sure you have no other layers turned on except for the aerial image of the base and the area you want to georeference. Then hit Auto Georeference. And just wait. So this should work.
So if that image you just overlaid does not have a georeference, what is it doing right now to fit that?
ArcGIS is basically looking at this image here, and it's looking at the reference image down here, and it's like finding matching spots. It's like it's just doing the thinking for you.
Okay.
Literally, like someone is doing this in the background with their hands. Okay.
I feel like you need a GIF doing that so you can reference that all the time with software.
Yes.
Is that?
You can meme it. You can meme it. Okay. Okay. I'm happy to be the butt of the meme. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Gotcha. So as you know, my #1 goal in my life is to become an influencer. My #2 goal is to become a meme. Okay. So there it is. You see, it basically figured it out. Then once you're done, you just hit save.
So are all those
And close Georeference.
Great.
And so it just doesn't work for you. So this will save you time. Let me do it one more time just to prove that it worked. So I did the other aerial 4 right here, so I'll bring that in. This is just doing the same process one more time. And these PNGs, you can see in here, like they're big. Like they're 343 kilobytes, 343,000 kilobytes, 224,000 kilobytes. So it's high res.
And so where did you?
So again, what I'll do is you kind of zoom into the area. If you have a bookmark, go to the bookmark, and then click on the aerial. Turn off all the other layers that you don't need. Go to Imagery, Georeference, Fit to Display. And so it throws it in the right location, and then just choose Auto Georeference. So you just hit save, close. Okay. And then the last step you do, once you've georeferenced your aerial, let's go back to the aerial 3. It's not done yet. What you need to do is you need to export out to a GeoTIFF. Okay. So choose the aerial. Right, that's it right there. This is the first one we did. Right click on it, data, export raster. All this stuff usually on the side should be basically correct. Output raster data set, just choose browse, find a location for that. I'll call this one area 3 aerial dot TIF. Always put the extension TIFF when you're exporting out rasters.
So TIFF carries that georeference data?
Yes, it's turning this into a GeoTIFF. Correct. A GeoTIFF is a very powerful format. Everything else just basically leave as is, then hit export. So I've done it 2 times here. So you could do it 1 time and not mess up. Right?
And you would do it just for like the node that you want a higher resolution.
Yeah. If there's a specific area that you want a high resolution area for, this is how you would do that. You don't necessarily need to do this for the entire city of Montgomery.
Or even your whole scope.
Yeah, or even your whole scope. Think about the deliverable at the end of the day. The deliverable at the end of the day is going to be diagrams and images, either of the entire scope, in which case it's going to be zoomed out, in which case any detail you put into it is meaningless, or it's going to be zoomed into a specific area in which the detail makes sense. So it's all about managing the need, pairing the need with the actual deliverable itself. And you notice that the majority of my work is just hitting run and just waiting for it to run. So there should be no actual work involved in that. Okay, I'll just do it 1 time for that right there, and then we will revisit aerial 4 later. It should automatically add itself into the model right here. We've created a ground DEM. We've created an aerial. So now we can go back and Oh, one last thing. The high res area that we're going to stack on top of this. So let's say this area here is the area that you want to create a high res base for. What you do is you just go to the high res TIFF right here, right click on that, go to data, export raster. Same thing here, but maybe give it a name. So this, in this case, we'll call this one area 3 HRDM for high res .tiff, right? And then make sure in clipping geometry, you just set that to be current display extent so that you won't export the high res for this area here. Hit export. And that took like 1 second, which is kind of cool. Okay, so we have everything we need. So now go into Infraworks, create a new model. So hit new, give it a name, call this one Montgomery, test 3. In coordinate system here, either set it to be LL84, or if you know the actual coordinate system, you also can just set it to the correct one, which in this case is AL83EF. In model extents here, just check this box called define model extent, load extent from file. And now what we're going to do is we're going to find that shape file that we made. So we're going to go to Montgomery, and we remember we called it bbox4, so that's what we're going to use. So you have these options here: use first polygon or use data extents. If you choose use data extents, it's going to create a bounding box around the data itself. If you choose first polygon, it's literally going to use the first polygon, literally the shape that you drew. So choose that, and then click OK. And hopefully this will work. I say hopefully because sometimes it doesn't work for some reason whenever you're doing the tutorial. And it didn't quite work, but it's fine. Like if you remember that bounding box that I drew had like a weird little corner to it, like here, and it didn't quite capture that. So I don't know why that never does this thing, but it's not a big deal. We can adjust that later. So to create a model, we have gone over this again. You just go to this data sources thing on the right. If you don't remember how to find that, basically you just click on manage, content, data sources, and that pulls it up. Then you choose this button right here, this little drop down menu here, go to raster, because that's the data set that you want to import, raster. Then you find the low res TIFF that we produced. So let me go to here, and I created this thing called 12, right? Montgomery LiDAR 12. And so you're going to want to find the TIFF file in this list of rasters that you've created. You see that I've created a few other resolutions, 12, 15, 30. The bigger the cell size, the lower the size of the file itself. So it just makes sense, right? So let's do 12. So click open. You double click on the layer that you want to configure. Ideally, it would just bring in the correct coordinate system that is already baked into the data set itself. Then just hit close and refresh. And then it will do something. So that is that general area that we worked in. And you'll see again, like in this case, the cell size of 12, my model on my computer ain't slowing down that much. So this 12 cell size on my computer in this model is workable. Like you can work at this. Like it's not going to crash my machine. And this is just, again, just starting small, getting bigger and bigger and bigger until you kind of find the limit of what you can do on your computer, right? Then what you can do is this. Let me actually show you this as well. Let me turn off the contours so you can see it a bit more clear. If, say for instance, your computer is struggling while this is happening, you can just simply swap out this raster for a lower resolution raster. So what I can do here is this, is just right click on the layer, click on this reconnect button right there. And this basically just says relink. This is like InDesign relink, but it's Infraworks. And so basically what you do is you click on this link that you want to relink. It's kind of a hidden button, but basically you have to click at the right, double click on the new thing, and there's like this square here. Click on that, and that brings up the ability to relink it. So let's choose, say for instance, 15, right? So this is a 15 by 15 cell size. You can see it's much lower in size. You can also do any of these other ones you want. Let's try 15. So click open, click OK, and refresh that. Now it just swaps out that for the new raster. This actually runs even faster. To verify that it worked, you can always just double check the dimension of the cell size. What you can do is you can go to the visualization settings, turn on the wireframe, like so, to see the actual cells. There is a measuring tool. So right at the top there, this thing on measure. You can choose measure, 2D, distance, and slope, and you can just use that to basically measure out roughly. So in this case, it was 15. So this is how you master optimization of models in Infraworks. The last part is stacking. So what you can do is we'll go in here, go to click add raster, and we're going to add that raster we created in GIS called area 3. This right here, area 3 HRDEM. And that, hopefully, let's see, where did I save it? I might have saved it out here. Yeah, area 3 HRDEM right there. You see that it's a high-res TIFF, but because it's just a small little area, the actual file size ain't that large. So optimization is the key here. So double click on that. See, it just throws it in there. Double click as you would configure it normally. Close and refresh because I already put it in the coordinate system. Then what's going to happen is this thing's going to come up. It basically says the surface you added is uncategorized. So what you do is you just hit yes. And what you have here is kind of like the DEM layers that you've added into Infraworks. This is the one we just added. It's uncategorized. So we just basically drag it into ground surface and we stack it on top of LiDAR ground 12. And then we just hit the light bulb to turn it on. Then you click apply. Okay. And you can just kind of see that area right there has a high resolution than its surrounding context just by a little bit. So optimization, low res context, high res focus area. If you turn on the wireframe, you'll see literally like there's an area right here where the cell sizes are much smaller than the surrounding cell sizes, and just kind of automatically blends them together. So you can create big models with high levels of detail in specific areas, but you don't want to create a big model with high detail everywhere, because then you are asking for death. So to get to the view settings, you just go to this thing on the upper right here. In your Infraworks, you probably only see conceptual view and engineering view. You click on this little gear thing right here, that brings up your view settings. I just leave this open all the time because it's very handy just to have on hand, so you can change the view to view, sun color, high visual quality. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add a couple of aerials. So what I've done is I have created, let's see, aerial 3 .tiff, I've created aerial2.tiff, so two different aerials of two different resolutions. So I created a larger area like here, but you know, there's also area around here that isn't contained within this here. So we're going to stack three things on top of each other. First thing we're going to do is, I may or may not have shown you this, is just loading in Bing Maps into the background. So this little thing up here that says add database data source right there, it's like the cylinder looking button right there. Click on that, then there's a connection type, and then there's at the second to the bottom, Bing Maps. And though basically what you can do is you can just load in aerial from Bing. And you can adjust the resolution in here of the Bing Maps quality. The higher the number, like 17, 18, 19, the slower it's going to load. The lower the number, obviously, the faster it'll load. So starting with the default one, which should be like 17, is a good place to start. So just click OK. Click OK when this thing comes up. Then right click on it, refresh. And it will take a second. So this is how you begin to add the background to your aerial with very little effort. But only problem with this, it looks good from afar, but again, you zoom in and it don't look that great anymore. So this is only for large, far away context, basically. But that's where stacking comes into play. So now we're gonna, on top of this, go to File, Import Raster. Now we're gonna choose the file that I called Area 2, right here. Let me turn off the background here. Area 2 looks like that. This is an arrow that I exported out and georeferenced. So Area 2.tiff, it's right here. You can see it's pretty big in size, 891. 1,000 kilobytes. So now you just configure that, double click on that, configure, close and refresh. So that now sits on top of the area below that. So you have low res to high res.
When you use is there like a way to do a little bit of photoshopping afterwards to adjust color?
I'll show you that in a second. I see what you're saying, like yes. Looking at this right now, this is the color of this doesn't look too attractive, but we can fix that. That's not that bad. I have one more aerial that I'm just put on top of this, so you can just go into your raster. So then I have, I believe I called it aerial 3.tiff. So that's this one right here. So area 3.tiff. Yep, it's that one. So close and refresh that. So these are even higher resolution one right here. You can see right here, that's the line that splits those two. It's like the georeferencing wasn't 100% correct, but it was close enough. Okay. All right. To edit the raster is here. So right now the color of this doesn't look that great. It's a little bit too brown. What you do is you go into the folder where that is located. In this case, it was area 2, this one right here, .tiff. If you go through the process that I taught you up to this point, when you export this new GeoTIFF out, it comes out with not just a TIFF, but a bunch of metadata files that go alongside with it. These files are the key. These are important. You can't delete these. These help this TIFF file find its way back home. So you can edit this TIFF file now. So now this is the process where you can go into Photoshop with this file here. So Photoshop, Let's open Photoshop real quick. Flamingos.
Can you just right click and hit edit with Photoshop on the file, or do you have to go in and find it?
You can just right click and edit with Photoshop. Put your phone on mute, unlike me. Just gotta open. Area 2, aerial.tiff, and open it. So you remember this from the initial workshop, you can do anything you want. So you can go in here, auto color, or any other coloring tools that you like to use, up to you. I just do the auto ones because usually they do a pretty good job of fixing it. Yeah.
Auto color is what?
Auto color, auto contrast, auto tone.
Oh,
You can go use other tools like curves or whatever if you want. So I like curves, so I just go to my curves and use that to add a little bit of, oops, just a little bit of contrast. Then what you can do as well, as I showed you previously, is that you can zoom into areas where you say, for instance, want to clean up, say for instance, like the highways, and make it so that the highway road doesn't cover the actual road below it. So it's just using that same exact method that I showed you guys previously, where you just basically just click an area. I think this is the easy way to do it, is just to basically copy it like that. And I'm just holding Control and Alt on my keyboard, on Windows keyboard. And then just hit save. Oh, right here it says that say it's open in another application. You might need to either remove it in, you might need to remove it in GIS or close GIS. I think removing it is probably the fastest way. So just remove it in GIS. That way you can save it. So just remove it and save that model. So now you should be able to save this. So it's saved. And I can close it. And go back to Infraworks. Find that aerial, right click on it, refresh. I'm going to remove aerial 3 just because it's covering the edit we just made. Oh, one thing you can do as well, instead of removing, let's say for instance, like we made that edit to the base area below this. You can either remove it, or you can click on this layers visibility data button right here. And you see the order in which these are stacked, and you just hit the light bulb to turn it off. You click OK. So you don't have to remove it, you just turn off the visibility of it. Okay, so that's the edited raster we just did. So you can see that's how you create the workflow. So I don't know why it didn't work when we tried to do it, but it worked here. So just do what I did. It'll work. And yeah, and then we removed some of the off-putting brown color so that we can make it blend a little bit better with the surrounding context. We made some edits to this, thank you. So you have a building, a shapefile that's how the building footprints. This is going to show you basically how you put buildings from GIS into Infraworks. Shapefile, go to Infraworks, go into the add data sources thing there, click on SHP for shapefile, right? Then you find that building footprint data set. So it's, in my case, it's called Building Footprints Montgomery. So then it adds it into the thing on the side there. You double click on it to configure it. So now you, in the type up here, you need to set that to be a building. Okay? What you can do is if the building footprint data set has an attribute that has the actual building height, you can just use this here, roof height, to automatically get the buildings to the correct height. We don't have that data for Montgomery. So you might need to do a little bit of work to get the building heights to the correct height manually. But if that information exists, I don't have it, but if that information exists, you can use this to basically set the building height. To start, I would just recommend, putting a generic height for every single building. So like 2 stories, it could be something like 30, right? To 30 feet. So let's just see what happens when we do that. So leave everything as is and hit close and refresh. Turn on the, so the process is finished. So what basically happened is it took every single one of the little shape files, it took that, it brought it to ground elevation, and then extruded it 30 feet. So that's how you mass out buildings in an urban context really quickly. This is quick for just quickly massing out things, but the only thing is that, number one, because we don't have any elevation data associated with the shapefile, you're just need to go in and you need to manually adjust buildings to the proper shape. Luckily, if you think about it, most buildings are typically around similar heights, and usually there's only a handful of buildings that have a specialized height. So you just kind of need to. That's why focusing on your specific site is key. So you don't have to model every single building in Montgomery. So I'll show you how to modify building height in a second. But the first thing before we talk about that is, see, all the buildings kind of have like all a different roof color. They'll have a different facade color as well. This is part of Infraworks, like the software is thinking of just randomizing the colors a bit just to make it feel more urban, make it feel like it's blending into the background. I'm not a big fan of this personally. I don't think it looks that great. I just think, what we should just do is just do simple white massings, especially for just context. So go back into the building configuration thing. So double click on the thing there. So there's a style thing right here. So now what you can go in here is you click on rule style. So what you do is you click on this little pencil thing, style chooser, and then ignore all of these for now. Basically, there's all these baked-in facades that you can basically slap onto buildings. They all look terrible, so I don't recommend you use these. The simplest thing is just go down to the color tab down here, then just choose a white color, right? Just choose white, and click OK. Then just take that there and copy it into the next 2 lines. So just Control-C and Control-V it into there. Then just hit.
Possible to set like roof material to the same as the TIFF?
No. Let me backtrack on that answer though. There is a way, but it's a it's not a method I would recommend doing.
Okay.
But we can revisit that. Let's say, for instance, this, the method you're suggesting makes the most sense if you're dealing with big box architecture, industrial buildings, warehouses, Walmarts, whatever, where you just don't want a giant white box and you might just want that texture. In which case there is a different method, but I'm not going to teach that method today, just because I don't want you to. I want most of you to use this method here. So now everything's white. And so this is just a simpler, cleaner representation of buildings. So I would recommend using this. What I recommend doing is, playing with some of the visualization settings here. Also open up the sun and sky. So in the Manage tab, the Display tab, there's a thing called Sun and Sky. You can use this to kind of give the buildings a little bit of depth by making the shadows a bit more dramatic. All right. That's kind of what buildings do. Is it adds that sense of three-dimensionality to the model. So you find a building that you know is at the wrong height. You can click on it. You basically, what you need to do is you need to click on this little thing that looks like a blue hat right here, or a blue little hut or whatever. And right now it's at the 30. So you can either type in a manual number, let's say 55 or whatever, and then just automatically changes it, or you can just drag it up visually like so. That's how you easily mass out buildings. If you're working downtown, we'll need to talk about how you can take these and make them a bit more, the building footprints a little more defined, because right now the definition of the buildings is not that great. But this is easy. This is just an easy way you can begin to mass it out. The last thing in regards to buildings is sometimes buildings, especially residential buildings, have pitched roofs. So what you can do is you can click on any building, let's say this one right here, and give it a pitched roof. So if you click on a building, you see on the side here there's this thing called roof slope. Just give it a number like 25, and it throws in a pitch to it. You can do multiple buildings if you want, so control click multiple ones at the same time, give it a roof, a pitch, like so. All right, then you say, okay, well I want this whole neighborhood to have pitched roofs. So then what you do is you select them all at once. There's a selection button up here, so you click on select. You can choose like a window select or a rectangle select or any of these selection tools. Let's just choose a window select. And then you basically just click and drag. So you can select multiple buildings at once and then give them all slopes. So that, these small little details are all you need. You don't need to model buildings. You just need to do enough, get the building height. If it has a pitched roof, maybe do a little bit of that to it, and that's all you need to do. If you remember, when let's give this one, say, pitched roof. If you remember, there is these facade styles. Don't use these styles, but I'll just show you what they are. Basically, you can click on this manual style button up here, more styles, and you can basically choose one of these facades. And it adds like a facade to it. But they look terrible. That's why I don't recommend doing it. Like these are all really bad looking buildings. You can have fun with it, but I don't. I've never in my time ever liked using these. Yeah, it doesn't know. It's a procedurally modeled building. It doesn't. It's for background, but it's not for accuracy. I'm telling everyone here, don't do that. Just do plain white massings. I'll show you very quickly how to do it in Rhino. So what you do is you find the area that you need to export. Let's just say it's this area right here in GIS. Export that layer to CAD. So go to your geoprocessing, go to export to CAD, choose the building footprints layer, environments, processing extent, set that to be current display extent. So it only exports that. Give it a name. So I'll call this one save my desktop. I'll call this one building test. All right, hit run.
Does most footprint data have the elevation included in it?
Some of it. In big cities like San Francisco or New York City, it will probably. In small cities, unlikely.
So you did that yourself? Instructed that?
That's a tutorial for another day.
Okay.
That's graphic studies 3 tutorial or something. Which hopefully, I don't know if you guys are taking or not, but that's the next class I'm teaching where it's going to be fun stuff. So go to Rhino. So when you ever start a new Rhino model, you know this already, I do 2 things. Number 1, I check the units. Make sure that my units are in feet, which it is. Sometimes it's not. Then you import the model. So those are the 2 steps. Check units and then import. Units are in feet, okay? You would do it correctly, which is to say that you would, well actually they didn't come in the correct elevation. I might need to fix that later. I'll make sure this is updated correctly, but regardless, this is the method. Basically what you do is, I'll move it closer to the origin, okay? Is that, what you would do is you create several layers in Rhino, let's say 1 story, 2 stories, 3 stories. All right. Then you select all the layers. You set it to one of the layers. So click on a layer like 2 stories, and then choose Change Object Layer. So right now everything is on the 2-story layer, like so. And then what you kind of basically need to do is you kind of need to, find the buildings that are, say, 1 story, right? Change them to that layer. Find the buildings that are more stories, change that to another layer. You need to create data basically. So you need to basically tell Rhino like how high these buildings are. This is the method if you don't have building height data associated with the shapefile. Because then what you do is once you have everything sorted, all you need to do is just basically right click on the layer that's all 1 story, select objects, extrude curve, then just extrude everything here to be 12 feet. Solid, yes, and then just click and enter, right? Then select everything that's 2 stories, select objects, extrude curve. So if it's 2 stories, it's probably gonna be 30 feet. Hit enter. Everything that's 4 stories, extrude. So set that to be 40, et cetera, et cetera. So you're gonna see this is how you easily do it, but it just takes a little bit of time to organize the data so that you get everything to the right height. So what you don't do is you don't do 1 by 1. You sort the data first, then you do everything in 1 category at once, everything in a 2nd category at once, everything in a 3rd category at once. So that's how you do it. I remember at work, we gave this task to one of the interns, and it just took them a couple days just to organize the building footprints and then just extrude them all at once. So it's kind of busy work, but this is the method. If you don't have Infraworks, okay. So last few tutorials, and then we can run. Okay, bridges and roads. So Infraworks, you want to build a bridge. Where do we need to build a bridge? Right here. Yeah, so for some reason the DEM is broken here. Actually, because the DM is broken there, let's skip to here. Pretend like the base below this is fine. So what you do is there's a few roll tools in here. So if you go to create, there's this transportation option here. You can either choose a planning road or component road. All right. The only thing that is able to turn into a bridge is a component road. But what you could do is you can draw it as a planning road first, and then convert it into a component road, and then convert the component road to a bridge. So that's the process. Component road, bridge. Planning road, component road, bridge. Planning roads are easier to customize. Component roads are less easy to customize. Bridge. So let's just do easy. Component road, okay? And what you do is you can choose through a series of pre-made road profiles, okay? If you get lucky, you'll find one that is close enough to the thing that you are trying to build a bridge for. And again, think about the big picture here. You're just creating a bridge for the purposes of having a detailed model for your images, but you don't need to exactly model it 100% correctly. So just choose one of them, like for instance, the one down here. And then what you do is you click, double click, and you've created a road, okay? What you can do is, let's say this, in this particular instance, it's a 3-lane road, so maybe what you do is you click, right click, I believe it's insert road component. So this takes a second. And what you can do is you can add another lane. So we'll just add a lane. And then what you can do is you click on that component. You can increase the extent of it by just dragging it over. Increase the width to maybe 10. Whatever, okay? You can change the material if you want it as well, so let's just move this out like so. Then to change the material, just click on the element, and there's a material thing right here that just kind of pops up, and just choose a material. And so that changes the material, right? So roughly, we've masked out the road. Then to create a bridge, you just click on this thing here. You right click kind of where the bridge starts, then you insert add structure right here, add structure. You got to do a bridge or a tunnel. We're going to do a bridge. So you choose bridge, and then you see it's going to create this thing, a start and end point. So you just kind of roughly say a bridge starts here. And you just kind of bring it over here. And then
Do you also just go to structures up at the top thing? Or do you need to go like make the road first?
I always do the road first. I've never played with the structure here. I mean, that could be something that, let's find out. Click on bridge. Oops. Well, let's see. Adds parametric. Oh no, you have to do the road first. Basically, it says add parametric bridge to road component. So you have to do the road first. So this adds like the little support structure for the road. It even adds like piles for the road itself. If you click on the road here, you can, let's say you click on the structure here. You can, right now it has one pier. You can do to 3 piers. And so you'll see that it will add a 2 on either side, like so. So, quick and dirty way of massing out bridges. You can change the material as well. So, you know, the color of this bridge here doesn't quite match the aerial. So you can go through and you can adjust the color of this to be a little bit lighter if you want to. So that's bridge method. That's how you build bridges, basically. I don't want to get too. Here's the thing, though. I don't want to get too involved in this particular thing right here, bridges, because that's not what our studio is about. Our studio is about just building a decent site model that we can use for our projects down the road. If you never model a bridge in your project, if you just have things like this as a background, you're going to have a fine project still. But if you want to go the extra mile and really dive into Infraworks and really like try to create realistic bases, have fun with it. This is just having fun. Okay, a few last things, then we can run out of here. There's a thing called terrain overlay. Terrain overlay. I didn't show you guys this previously. Basically, you have no skills, right? And you just need to say, like, I just need to throw a plan. I just need to throw a picture. I just need to throw something on my model. But I don't want to go to the GIS. I hate GIS. You're allergic to GIS or something. You want to just say, I never want to look at GIS for the rest of my life. Is there a way you can bring an aerial into Infraworks without using GIS? And the answer is yes, you can. So here's the example that I'm going to use for this demonstration is, if you remember the link I sent you, this little whitewater thing on the side. What I have saved is a plan of that park. We're going to add that to this model here. I think I double clicked on it. There it is. Yeah. So this water park right here. Okay. We're going to add this into the plan. So you find a plan of a project. You make your own plan of a project. You find something that you want to use. No, it's literally its own enclosed thing next to the river.
They said, no one wants to swim in that river.
No.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. So you have a plan that you want to integrate into your model. So you can either add it in the old-fashioned way, or you can just be like, and then basically, yes. And when you do that, you do like kind of make the weird noise that I just did. So anything that you drag in like that, you see it automatically adds it in as a terrain overlay. And then basically it's gonna ask for a coordinate system, but it doesn't mean anything. It just means like it's going to be something that's in the units of meters, right? In this thing here, you just need to throw some coordinate system down here. Just choose LL84, whatever. Then you choose this button down here called interactive placing. And you can just like slap on this thing as a sticker, basically. You see how big this is, though? So what you can do is basically, hit escape. Instead of choosing XY meters, you can choose XY. Click on the little Earth-looking thing. Choose XY inches, and it'll just reduce the unit. There is nothing scientific about this at all. Now it's like a little bit smaller, right? So split the difference. Let's do XY feet. So that's close enough. So just double click, and just double click anywhere. Like I'm not even going to put it on where the site is. Just put it down there. Then hit close and refresh. And then basically you just have this like almost like a decal that you just kind of move around the site, and you just find generally where it's located and just put it onto the plan. And ideally you would have some reference points that you can use to align it with the background. In this particular instance, I don't really have that many reference points, but the basic gist is basically what you can do is right click on the thing, place by reference points. You can choose a point. You get the process. You can easily align the plan with whatever you need. And this is a really bad example because I don't have as many reference points, but that's how you begin to add like other information on top of your thing. A very practical way to use the terrain overlay, in my opinion, is to create your own labels. So in Illustrator, what you can do okay, so in Illustrator, you create your label, right? So Holt Street, that's a street that is in Montgomery, you know? Nothing fancy about here. I just created a label, added a drop shadow, and I chose a font that I liked. Then you export that out as a PNG right here. So you just go to Infraworks. I'm not sure what this is. Get rid of that. Find the street that is, which I believe is this one right here. And then just add that in. So just drag it in. And then configure that. So as you spin around your model, let's say you want to like do very quick exports, you don't have to add the street names in design. You don't have to add the street names in Illustrator. You can just have it as part of the model. This is, in my opinion, one of the secrets to modeling is you try to make the model look as close as possible to the final diagram of whatever you're creating. Even something as simple as adding the labels in the model. Because that's one less label you have to add in InDesign or Illustrator down the road. And then also think about this. All right, I changed the angle of the model. Well, you don't have to add that label there. The label is already in the model. So this is a technique that I like to use a lot, is just to add street names using this terrain overlay method into the model. A few other things. All right. If you remember a while back, I showed you this thing called agricultural imagery, NAIP Imagery. You can add that into Infraworks as well. So I'm going to go to Insert Raster. I'm going to find those images that I downloaded. So I have this photo called NAIP right here. Right, these are all the images that the tiles for that raster. Just select them all, hit open. It just squashes it all into one folder. It inherits the name of the folder that the data came in. And then you can just add that in. It just brings in everything as is. Hit close and refresh. I'm gonna delete this whitewater thing just so you don't have to look at it. And then what you can do is you can actually do the same infrared, false red banding that you can do in GIS. So just double click on that NAIP folder there, go to raster, band mapping down here, choose RGB alpha, then basically do the 4, 1, 2 band, and it should actually, what I should have done is this, is I should have done, let me fix it real quick. I should have done just should have just done RGB and just did 412 like that. Just need to remember that. 412. 412 is the secret code to get this type of map. This is my second favorite map because it like very easily shows impervious versus pervious areas on a project site. You can look at this and easily, I get it. I get it. Parking lots, abandoned sites, abandoned sites. Okay, the last thing is exporting this out to Rhino, okay? So let's remove some of these layers. Rather, let's just turn them off. I'm just gonna turn off a few layers here, okay? And then I'm gonna show you guys a couple of examples of models. You don't have to export to Rhino, but if you want to have a workflow between all the models, there is a way to do it. So you want to export a model of this area here, because that's your site. So what you do is basically you go to the Present and Share tab at the top of Infraworks there, and then click on Share, Export 3D Model. Then you define the area that you want to export into 3D. You can either draw a polygon or you can draw a bounding box. So let's draw a bounding box. I think this is just a little bit nicer to just draw a box, right? So that's area that you can export. In coordinate system here, make sure that is set to the AL83 east feet. Make sure it's the feet one, okay? In this origin thing down here where it says X, Y, and Z, set that to be user defined. And you take these X, Y, Z numbers right here, open Notepad. You notice that I open Notepad a lot, and I always just copy a bunch of numbers into that. We're gonna copy those numbers in here. And the Z is 0. So X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z. Gotcha? Save as. Just say in your desktop and call it offset numbers. Okay. Then what you do, that's all I need to do is just copy those numbers. Then choose in target files, choose multiple files, turn off everything that's not what you need. You don't really need any of these items in here. You just need ground and buildings. Those are the only two things you need. Okay. And then set ground, click on the little folder next to the name, go save it on your desktop, save it as an OBJ file. We'll call this ground export. Then go to this building layer here, check that. Choose OBJ, call that building, export. Make sure that export materials and textures box is checked, and click export. And then open Rhino while it's exporting. So when it's done exporting, basically go into Rhino, go in perspective, type in import. Import the ground export. I believe you need to check this box, map OBJY to Rhino Z, and click OK. So that's the raster, or not the raster, the terrain model we just exported out. If we go to a rendered view, like so, it should have the ground texture on it. So the whole process of creating the fishnet and all this stuff in GIS, you can just skip all that if you just know how to use Infraworks. You just go straight to the texture, or straight to the mesh. And then for the buildings, let me just say real quick, I believe the buildings are in a different location. So let me see if I can find it. It might be in the documents. Yeah, it's in documents. So buildings import. So find the location where you import the buildings. So just choose the building, click open, leave all the settings the same, and the buildings are in there. So now you have your model in Rhino. You can fire up Enscape. You can do all the stuff that you want to do in Rhino. It has texture already mapped on top of it. So why did we save these numbers here? Because that's the origin point of the of this model. So what you can do, say for instance, is this. You are, a month from now, you're going to be designing your projects. You're going to be modeling the greenway, you're going to be modeling your interventions, you're going to be modeling, you know, the park designs or whatever you're doing. Or you're modeling a bridge. So let's model a bridge. So what we can do is really simply model out, right, a little bridge thing there. Extrude that, extrude surface, give it a thickness, let's say 3, maybe 5 feet, right? Now you want to bring this actually what we should do is this. Let me undo that real quick. Extrude surface. Make sure you have solid checked yes, and then do. So now it's a closed. So now you take this thing here. You need to move that to these points here, or you need to use these points to basically offset this within Infraworks. I'll show you 2 ways, okay? There's a good way, and then there's a slightly better way. They're both okay. So copy these numbers, then put a comma in between each of the numbers. Okay, copy that. Then in Rhino, take that bridge, type M, move it from 0, 0, 0 to the thing we just copied. So I just Control V that into the thing there. So now you've moved this to the geolocated position. Oops. Then you take that, export selected to a FBX file. Call this one bridge. Infraworks. Click OK. It's going to want to mesh it, so just give it a meshing resolution. It's just something in the middle is probably OK. Click OK. And now in Infraworks, go to the configuration thing here, choose 3D model, find that bridge Infraworks thing we just created, bring that into the model here, configure it, so double click on it, add in the coordinate system of the export AL83 East EF, just use that one for everything. Set the type to something, it could be a building, it could be a road, it just need to be some kind of 3D geometry. Just set it to be a road. It's a road in this case, right? Check the model to make sure that it looks correct, right? Then click close and refresh. Bridge. So it comes in the right location. That's why you save those numbers. The second method is this, okay? Remove that. This method I think is a little bit better. Instead of moving it in Rhino, move it in Infraworks. So your model is located here, just model as you would model, right? Then take this thing here, export it out. Let's add a few more things just to make it fun. Let's add a box or whatever, you know, whatever. Take that, export selected, save over the previous FBX file, right? Bridge Infraworks, save, yes. Click OK. Give it a mesh resolution, click OK. That's exported now. Go back into Infraworks, 3D model, choose that thing. It comes in, you configure that, choose a road, choose the AL83 East F. Then you have right here this offset thing right here. That and there you put in those numbers. So copy this one, paste, copy that one, paste, close and refresh. You don't have to do anything. This is how you're going to design your projects, right? Because then basically what you can do is go back in here. Oh, some feature of your project you're going to edit, you're going to modify, whatever. Then you take that model. It's going to have textures. It's going to have plants. It's going to have everything that you work on. Export, selected, save over that. Okay. Okay. Fresh. Easy. Okay.